Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's show with SportsbookReview.com. I'm your host, Lee Martin, joined today, like every week, with SBR's UFC expert, David Manyun, and MMA Mania's lead host, Matt Ryan. We're going to break down the entire main card and dabble a little bit into this upcoming weekend's fight night for UFC Fight Night, Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Ciryl Gane. But hold on a bit. Before we jump into this upcoming weekend, I just want to rewind and get into the past weekend. And me and the guys were talking about this before we got on, but we want to recap Curtis Blaydes versus Derrick Lewis. And what a night. I'm so disappointed because when I was breaking down this fight, I was originally taking Curtis Blaydes, but the more I talked, the more I convinced myself to take Derrick Lewis. But I took him for a round 3 knockout and not a round 2 knockout. So that was slightly disappointing. But I want to hear how the guys' weekend went. Dave, I'll start with you. How did your Saturday go? Dave, I think you're muted.
Yes, I was speaking to myself. It's an awesome shout to the show, guys. As I was saying, great performance by Tom Aspinall. What a legend. Came through, got the victory like I thought. Yeah. I don't know what happened in the main event. Didn't pay too much attention to that. I'll let Matt can cover that fight. I know he loves the heavyweight, so I don't want to take any words out of his mouth. So.
All right, well, how about you, Matt? Let's go on to you then. How was your Saturday?
The Black Beast lied in wait like a crocodile in the Florida Panhandle, just waiting for an unwitting tourist to pull out a chicken sandwich, and wham! He got the knockout. Derrick Lewis making me seem much smarter than I actually am. Luck being the word of the day here, brought to you by my crippling caffeine addiction.
Well, I'm glad we all had a great weekend, though. Let's just say that. Despite, Dave, the main event, it's okay. It happens. But this upcoming weekend will be much better for everyone, okay? Well, that being said, let's not waste any time because we do have 6 fights to cover in the main card. So let's just jump into the first fight. We have the featherweight Alex Caceres. I always mess up his last name. Alex Caceres. There we go. Alex Caceres versus Kevin Croom. And before I get into their odds, can we talk about their nicknames real quick? Alex Caceres is Bruce Leroy, and Kevin Croom is the hard-hitting hillbilly. So that is beautiful. Now, if I can find their names on here, where are their names? Well, I can't find. Oh, Alex Caceres is minus 205 and Kevin Croom is plus 175. I can't see today. Dave, I will start with you for your breakdown and pick for the first fight.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting fight. I'll give you that. Alex Caceres, it feels like forever. It makes me feel old when that name comes out because this guy started in this company as a kid and here he is a decade later. He's been with the UFC now since, I think it was Ultimate Fighter GSP versus Koscheck. Now, if you're a UFC fan, you'll know how long ago that was. And basically, Caceres just grew up in the company. And he's been consistent enough to keep this contract for 10 years. He's now, a veteran with a lot of experience behind him. And as we see him late on in his career now, it looks like he's in his prime. He's on a win streak, and it's real impressive. He's like he's like an MMA prodigy. He didn't come from a background of jiu-jitsu or karate or anything like that. He was fighting on the streets of Miami, similar to Georges Masvidal. He was a street fighter, and then he found a gym, and it wasn't long before training in MMA before he was on the Ultimate Fighter doing his thing. He's well versed. Submissions, striking, they're both on point. When Bruce Leroy loses in the UFC, it's more often than not against a high-level opponent, either above him in the rankings, or it's against, fighters like Kron Gracie who have that one elite skill set. He's a tricky southpaw. He fought Austin Springer, and his stance looked great. It really did in his previous fight. He was popping that jab, maintaining the distance well, and he nearly finished the fight early on with a high kick too. Now, the transition from side back mount into the rear naked choke was a thing of beauty. It really was. Go and watch Bruce Leroy versus Springer. The way he got that back so quick, that was beautiful. It really was. So, yeah, the opposition, hasn't been super high of recent, but Caceres is certainly looking to be in his prime years, and against the guy debuting in Croom, I fancy his chances. Groom's making his second debut because of a failed drug test from an impressive round 1 stoppage of Roosevelt Roberts. Now, I was fading him, didn't expect him to do that. Bettors were lucky because the drug test didn't affect your bet. But now, you know, coming up against the experience of Caceres, Roosevelt Roberts was in a similar position to Croom in the sense of they both didn't have that UFC experience, whereas Caceres has been doing this at the highest level for the past decade. Caceres, for me, is way too experienced to fall for the same tricks that Roosevelt Roberts did. Croom comes out and he starts quick and fast, as you can see from that fight. Caceres has got the tools and the skills to keep that aggression at bay. And when it comes to taking, close split decisions against the likes of Yair Rodriguez, for me, fighting a guy like Croom who's losing to guys like Nate Jenneman in LFA, no disrespect to Nate, 13-5 record. He's not too bad himself, but it's just the level of competition, 2 worlds apart. Croom and Caceres, their career and trajectory has been quite similar, but what is the key difference? One of them has been fighting in the UFC and the other hasn't. They're almost identical. Age, experience, height, reach. But as I said, one of them's been doing it on the regional MMA circuit and one of them's been doing it in the UFC. So for that reason, I have to side with Alex Caceres. But in terms of betting, I wouldn't be mad at anyone for taking Croom. I really wouldn't, because the odds, they seem to be getting worse from what I can see in terms of, favorable value on Caceres seems to be disappearing. And I just don't like the odds, but I do feel like Caceres is going to take this one, probably by decision.
All right. Well, how about you, Matt? What's your breakdown and pick for this fight?
These guys are on a parallel track, as Dave said. Both of them got wins overturned for the weed, as Stephen A. Smith would like to say here in the United States of America. 420 blaze it, legalize it. But when it comes to they have so many things in common. But when you look at their records, Caceres has only had 3 knockouts. He's been knocked out once. Croom has knocked out more opponents, but that regional, the regional against the UFC is a heavy argument here. And Dave basically went through all of my notes before I could break anything down, because Dave is brilliant. But when you talk about the regional MMA, I believe that most of the regional MMA companies in the United States use smaller cages. And Kevin Croom is a hard-hitting hillbilly. So that smaller cage, he may have more experience in a smaller cage. Alex Caceres, growing up in the UFC, fighting on the main card of a UFC show, that does give him an innate advantage because he's used to the cameras, used to the style, used to the pomp and circumstance. Croom's only seen that side of it once. But that smaller cage for a guy who has 6 knockouts in his career, that does give him a little bit of an edge and can make him a little more active, a little more aggressive. He may have his footing a little better set than a Caceres. If I was going to wager on this fight, if I was looking at this fight pragmatically, I would go with a decision. I would bet I would put that as a prop. I would try to put it in a parlay, and I'd like Croom for it. I think the odds are good, as Dave said. I like the smaller cage. I like his ability to knock people out, but I do see these guys testing each other for 3 straight rounds. Caceres, with the experience, obviously is the overwhelming favorite, but I can see the hard-hitting hillbilly taking down Bruce Leroy here.
All right. So I just went over to the prop section on Bet Online, and to go the distance, like how you said, Matt, it's minus 170, so that's not bad. But when we go to points, Kevin Croom by points is plus 500, and Alex Caceres by points is minus 105. So there's value there. So if you guys do want to get on this fight again via Bet Online, just straight up, Alex Caceres is minus 205 and Croom is plus 175. All right. Now let's move on to the next fight, and this is going to be a good fight. We have women's strawweight Angela Hill versus Ashley Yoder. Via Bet Online, Hill is minus 375 and Yoder is plus 300. Matt, I'll continue with you for your breakdown and pick for this fight.
Well, we've got ourselves a rematch from the 2017 Ultimate Fighter Redemption finale and it sounds so nice because I'm hearing it twice in my ears. Ashley Yoder's 1-2 in her last 3 fights. Her most recent win coming back in her last fight in November against Miranda Granger. She's 3-3 since that loss to Hill in 2017, but not against unquality opponents. These were quality opponents: Mackenzie Dern, Randa Marcos, Livia Renetta Souza, and all of them by decision. So Yoder knows how to go the distance. She has gone to the decision 4 times in her career. All 6 of her losses are by decision. So she's 4-6 for those looking at those little integers. The deeper this fight goes, it will be better for Angela Hill, who's at an even 500, 7-7 when she goes to the scorecards. She's coming off 2 split decision losses to Michelle Waterson and Claudia Gadelha. But either of those fights, split decisions on purpose. Angela Hill is a gamer. She puts in all 3 rounds. She is one of my favorites inside the octagon. And she's got the win. She's got the win over Yoder in the past. I think that's a huge advantage for her. Angela Hill's also fought 4 times in 2020. And since 2017, Yoder's only had 6 total fights. So in terms of activity, the smaller cage, Hill's propensity to knock people out, I'm going with Angela Hill here. I do believe it goes to, I think we're going to see another decision here, but that smaller cage is making me eye a potential prop for a knockout.
Yep. So I'm looking at the props again. So Angela Hill by points is -175, so that is favored right now. And you brought up the Michelle Waterson fight, and I was actually watching that yesterday, and I truly believed that was Angela Hill's fight. So props to her for that. But Dave, how about you? What is your breakdown and pick for this fight?
Yeah, good old Angie Hill. And do you know what? I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to come clean. I've been fading Hill for a while now, and I've been taking her opponents at the bookies since Look Boon Me. Now, Look Boon Me cost me. She won that fight. Beautiful fight, unanimous decision. Then she fought Claudia Gadelha. Gadelha, however it's pronounced. And she took a split decision that she won. Okay? Now, I can't say I completely agree that she won the Waterson fight. I do think that was way closer than the Gadelha fight. I think Hill was completely robbed there. And look, that's over now. That's done with. She is facing a girl in Ashley Yoder who is, I don't believe she's at this level. They've already fought once already. Angie is now a household name in this strawweight division. She's fought the who's who in this division. Unfortunately, she comes up short versus the majority of these elite girls. But, minus them robberies, she is definitely one of the best girls that we see fight at strawweight. Them 2 extremely close split decision losses can be viewed really as nothing more than bad luck. And obviously, people are still arguing the Claudia fight to this day as one of the biggest scorecard mistakes of 2020. It was terrible, awful decision making. She's a former pro Muay Thai specialist. She went 16-0 in Muay Thai. So obviously it's no surprise. We always know that Ange, she likes to strike. She does it at range. She keeps the opposition on the outside. She's naturally strong in the clinch. And her main weaknesses is often found with wrestling. And when it comes to jiu-jitsu, it's non-existent. But when it comes to Ashley Yoder, I'm highly confident that Ange is going to get the job done. And, I shouldn't be so confident, but let's face it, Ashley Yoder's the complete opposite of the Black Beast. And I'm actually really confident that Ange is going to get the job done. We saw how this fight plays out. I don't see much changing. You look at the games of these two, you look at Yoder's fights since. Her game hasn't changed. She hasn't evolved all that much. Her record isn't that great. Neither is Ange's. But look at the activity of both of these girls since that first fight. We're looking at 6-11 here. Yoder's has 6 fights. Ange's had 11. That's nearly double the amount of, activity and experience that she's earned. The stand-up for me is Ange. The clinch, Ange. Takedowns, I'll give to Yoder. Ground control, I'd say it's about even. I don't even see the fight going to the ground and staying there. If it does, maybe Yoder will get a takedown too. But Ange is so good in the clinch, I could see her reversing and getting a takedown of her own. So for me, it's take take Ange by decision for this one for the better price, because it's highly unlikely that she's going to get the finish. The strawweights, they usually end in decision, so I feel that's how this one's going to end. Ange is good at point fighting, really good. As Matt mentioned, she picks it up. She really picks it up when the fight gets going. So, yeah, it's for me, Ange, she'll definitely take rounds 2 and 3, in my opinion.
Beautiful. I'm with you guys with Angela Hill. So again, if you guys do want to get in this fight via BetOnline, Angela Hill is -375 and Ashley Yoder is +300. Let's move on to the next fight. We have Bantamweight Pedro Munoz versus Jimmie Rivera. And we were actually supposed to see this fight in UFC 258, I believe, but then there was a positive COVID test, whatnot, but whatever. We're here now. Their odds via BetOnline, Rivera is -153 and Munoz is +133. Dave, I'll continue with you for your breakdown and pick for this fight.
Yeah, look, we've got another rematch, another fight that we're about to see again. Pedro Munoz, 18-5-0, training at American Top Team, 13 fights in the UFC, and nobody has managed to put Munoz out by submission or knockout. And that statistic should be highlighted, basically just because of the level of opposition he's faced. Incredible. Grappling-based backgrounds being the focus of the majority of his career, judo, jiu-jitsu, but then you have to pay attention to his knockout power. Cody Garbrandt, and that's all I'll say. 9 stoppages by submission. We haven't really seen him utilize that jiu-jitsu since his guillotine choke back in 2017 over Rob Font. So, you know, it's hard to give him props on that. It's like Munoz wants to elevate his striking game and strike with the best in the division. This, for me, has caused him a two-fight losing streak, and that's the first time he's suffered a 2-fight losing streak in his career. Now he's looking to take on the guy who he fought early on in his UFC career. They were both new to UFC when they first fought. I can't remember exactly when it was, but Jimmie Rivera, 23-4-0, fighting out of Tiger Schulman. He's got the slight age advantage. He's only 31. And, you know, the main advantage he's got really is he won the first fight. He's been training with Tiger Schulman since he was 18. He came from wrestling, joined the UFC, was undefeated. He's fought in the UFC 10 times. And when, much like his opponent in Munoz, when Rivera loses, he loses to champions or title challengers. So, you know, there's the evidence that he's in the right place and he should be fighting at this level. Some of the highest stats in the UFC for defensive attributes come from Jimmie Rivera. And when he mixes that up with his striking, you see how damn good he is. And that's the reason why we look at Piotr Yan and Aljamain Sterling, and them boys, they could only get the decision win against Rivera. They could not put him out because he is a tough dude. His wrestling base, it just allows him to dictate if the fight is standing or if it's on the ground. And then versus jiu-jitsu opposition, they struggle to gain the position that they need to lock in the subs. It's got lightning fast reactions and counters. We know all the bantamweights are quick, but, you know, in action, Rivera holds a speed advantage against most of the guys in this division altogether. I can't help but anticipate a complete repeat of the first fight, and maybe even a bigger advantage for Rivera. Not a lot has changed for Munoz besides he enjoys striking more, as I mentioned, and given that he probably won't be able to gain top control of Rivera if he's too busy messing around with his striking. I would not be surprised at all if he accepts that striking war and wants to test his one pop again. I think he's holding on to that Cody Garbrandt knockout. Now, Rivera, what I've noticed, what's different between Rivera from then to now is he likes to utilize his leg kicks way more often than in that first fight. I mean, a lot of fighters are now using leg kicks a lot more, but Rivera in particular, with that speed, I expect to see a lot more of it this time around. He's going to have that speed advantage. He's going to outnumber Munoz on the strikes, maybe throw a takedown or two into the mix. I don't see a finish in this one. Much like the last fight, it's the second time they're fighting. We're going to see a repeat by decision. Rivera to take the win for me.
I actually thought this was funny in the comments below. BC_Dave says, Rivera has this easy. Munoz T-Rex arms can't reach him. I think that's pretty funny. But how about you, Matt? What is your breakdown and pick for this fight? Matt?
myself because I was coughing earlier and didn't want to be inconsiderate. But I don't have I'm not going to say Jimmie Rivera has T-Rex arms, but I am fading him here. I am going to pick Pedro Munoz. Munoz is, Munoz has 2 straight decision losses, but they're to Frankie Edgar and Aljamain Sterling. You could say the same thing for Jimmie Rivera because he lost to Marlon Moraes, Aljamain Sterling, and Peter Yan. Dave made a great case for him in terms of the quality and level of opponent he's faced. But he's also 2-3 in his last 5. Munoz had, he knocked out Cody Garbrandt, which set him off ended a 3-fight winning streak, making him 3-2 in his last 5. And also it was a split decision loss that after that, Munoz did not lose for over 2 years. He did not suffer a loss for over 2 years after that loss to Rivera. All but 2 of Rivera's fights have gone to a decision since joining the UFC. Mm-hmm. He's been knocked out once and suffered 3 decision losses in his career. And then you take a look at Munoz. All 5 of his losses have been by decision. His chin has not been tested. Dave's talking about Munoz has more improved striking, more focused striking. So in that smaller cage, I know it's a trope for me to bring up the frickin' baby cage at this point, but I like Munoz here. I like the intangibles. I like the fact that after that loss to Rivera, he had a fire lit under him. He's got a knockout win against a former champion, even though Cody Garbrandt might be in the Tyron Woodley post-peak class of 2021. But I like Munoz here. For some reason, I'm going with him, and I think he might finish the fight in the second round, if not do enough to get a unanimous decision win.
All right. Well, in the props, there's a lot of value for Munoz finishing in the second round. So if you guys do like that, then by all means go for it. But I'm with Dave on Rivera. So if you guys do want to get in on this fight, again, via BetOnline, Rivera is -153 and Munoz is +133. Let's move on to the next fight. We have women's flyweight Montana De La Rosa versus Mayra Bueno Silva via BetOnline. De La Rosa is +115 and Silva is -135. Matt, I'll continue with you for your breakdown and pick for that fight.
Well, let's take a look at Montana De La Rosa in her last 3 fights. She's 1-2 with a loss to Viviane Araújo back in September via decision, and then a loss to Andrea Lee. Her only win was against Mara Romero Barella, and I think it pissed Dave off here with what I'm about to say. But in her UFC career, she started off with 3 submission wins against Christina Marks, Rachel Ostovich, and Nadia Kasim, and you can make the argument whether or not they're quality opponents, but at the time, they were deemed quality opponents, especially for Ostovich. She's had losses to Mackenzie Dern and Cynthia Calvillo on the regional circuit. Conversely, Borella Silva has a win against Romero Borello, common opponent. She's 2-1 in the UFC with both of her wins by armbar against Borello and in her UFC debut in 2018 against Jillian Robinson. Her only loss, and this is her only pro loss, was a decision against Mainara Moros. And prior to the Robertson fight, she was 5-0. So I really like Silva here. I know she has less experience, especially less experience in the octagon against someone like De La Rosa. But De La Rosa, we've seen her lose before. She has, she's had 4 decision losses. She's been submitted once. She's been knocked out once. And that chin against someone who has a knockout on her record, and at that level, at women's flyweight, anyone having a knockout on their record, to me, is very impressive because these fighters are built for the long haul. They're built for the ground game. They're built for decision. So seeing someone with a knockout on their record and that submission over Robertson, that kind of sticks in my head. I really like Silva here.
Yeah. I actually I have like a little asterisk, like win versus Jillian Robertson. But Dave, welcome back. Well, how about you? What's your breakdown and pick for the De La Rosa versus Silva fight?
This is tough. It's tough for me, this one. It really is, because I actually studied this a bit more than I actually wanted to. Montana De La Rosa, for the losses that she's had, she is such a tough girl. She's got a wrestling background. I think she was a 3-time All-American, but someone should probably fact check me on that, because I did try to search that bit of information up, but I couldn't actually find anything. But I know she's legit in wrestling, and she made her way through Ultimate Fighter. She's always relying on her grappling to win the fight, and when she's striking, she's basically using that to get herself into range, level change, make a shot. But when she's faced with that strong takedown defense, her striking offense is getting better fight by fight. Striking defense, not so much. And that's where she does have a little bit of a problem. She's got issues with her nose, which affects her breathing. She's had, I think she's had a couple of surgeries on her nose. And although it was fixed, she then came up against a Viviane Araújo who just blooded the thing. There was blood just dripping. It wasn't pleasant to watch. You could see she began to struggle with that breathing again. And it's things like that that make me hesitant on, putting my full faith behind her. She's 4-2 in the UFC on record, but 2 of them girls, they're no longer signed with the company. But with that said, as I mentioned, she is constantly evolving, especially her stand-up game. And she's age 26. We could see improvements from De La Rosa from fight to fight, literally. Majority of her career finishes are through submission, but they have stopped working since the level of competition has raised for her. Andrea Lee was able to spam the takedown attempts and even land some significant takedowns of her own. Her win versus Barella was a good fight, but Barella is a 0-4 right now. The Viviane Araújo scrap I mentioned, that was a good fight, and she brought it on late towards the fight, made a great account of herself, especially late on. She showed no quit. That nose was dripping, and she started to overtake in the fight. But the nose issues were just too much. It was a clear loss for her, just through damage alone. Viviane's jab is dangerous. And then we've got Silva, who just haven't seen enough of. She gets in there, she gets it done. That's it. Done. Gone. Opponent out. Break her arm, take her neck. That's it. She's no slouch on the feet herself, but, majority of her wins coming through BJJ. BJJ is her world. Submissions is what she's all about. In the stand-up, she's still got that Muay Thai. She's got the clinch work. She loves a knee or two, and she'll throw spinning back fists in as well. And that's across multiple fights. I see her. She's got her opponent against the cage. She'll throw a knee. It's like maybe that's one of her combinations, a knee to spinning back fist. It's not something I've seen before, but it's worked. She's very diverse and aggressive, and that's everything we need in this strawweight division, in my opinion. Incredible off bottom guard, obviously. Multiple armbar finishes, and this is all due to her opponents taking her down. She hasn't even initiated the takedown. She's been taken down. She's been in bottom guard and then tapped them off her back. Incredible. Now, this is a problem for her opponent who loves to wrestle. So she's going to want to wrestle, but is she going to want to get into that world on the ground with her? I don't think so. So now she's going to have to test her striking. How much has it evolved? I don't really know. Is she going to be able to beat Silva? It's such a tough fight to predict. The line is close. It's going to have to be, give me the lethal finisher who should hold striking advantage. Or alternatively, take Rosa, who uses her wrestling, risks the extremely dangerous jiu-jitsu offense of Silva. Yeah, it's tough. Path to victory. I do prefer Silva, but De La Rosa, she could easily cause some problems with that wrestling offense if she can overcome the bottom guard, because she's got jits herself. She's not no slouch when it comes to jitsu. She's got it. It's there. I'm just not sure if she wants to enter that world with someone who like Silva, who has finished so many of her fights that way. So I am gonna lean Silva, but when it comes to betting this fight, I'm staying away. When it comes to like predicting props and stuff, you just don't know. This could go to decision, or someone could get tapped in round one. But this fight, in terms of betting, I will most likely be completely off from all angles.
Two things really quick. De La Rosa is a former 3-time high school All-American wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
And Valentina Shevchenko and Jessica Andrade are fighting on April 24th. That just got announced.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, lolly.
Nice. But no, Dave, I agree with you. I'm not touching this fight. I was leaning Silva, but then I was just like, honestly, if you're double guessing everything, I'm not touching it. But if you guys do want to get in on it, again, via BetOnline, Silva is -135 and De La Rosa is +115. Let's move on to the co-main. We have light heavyweight Nikita Krylov versus Magomed Ankalaev. And please, if either of you are taking Krylov, please, I hope you have a good debate for this, because I am all over Magomed Ankalaev. But via BetOnline, his odds are -342 and Krylov is +282. Matt, I'll go with you for your breakdown and pick for the co-main.
Well, I'm not taking Nikita Krylov. He did get a win over Johnny Walker back in March 2020 before the dark times, but he's 2-2 in this most recent tour of the UFC with those losses to Jan Blachowicz and a split decision loss against Grover Teixeira. His only win is a submission win, and I think this is why Lee's a little bit salty over OSP, her favorite.
Oh my God,
but this is a guy who was in his second tour of duty in the UFC, was in there from 2013 to 2016. He was 6-3 in his first run in the UFC. Right now, his overall UFC record is 8-5, accounting for all but 2 of his losses as a pro fighter coming inside the octagon. And that's a solid record. The experience is a huge factor here. But then you look at Ankalaev, since losing to Paul Craig in his UFC debut, got caught with a submission. That's going to happen. 4 of his UFC wins have been by knockout or TKO, and 3 of them have come in the first round. That is troubling. 2 of those also against Ian Cutelaba. He's knocked out 9. He's been to the decision 5 times. I got to go with Ankalaev here. Krylov is going to give him a fight, but this is also a guy who's been knocked out before, has been submitted before, and has only been to a decision twice in his career. That is an interesting stat for a guy with over 30 pro fights. All but 2 of them have had a finish attached to him. That, to me, is the interesting stat of the day for Nikita Krylov, but I'm going with Ankalaev here. I think he gets the drop on Krylov.
Easy. Well, how about you, Dave? What's your breakdown and pick for the co-main?
I love OSP, and I'm going to stick up for him. In my opinion, it's 2-1 to OSP, because OSP had that beautiful choke on him way back when Krylov was new to the UFC. And yeah, he did get his revenge a little bit. He got that rear naked choke over OSP. It was Holloway Poirier, weren't it, that card? The thing is, though, with that fight, OSP beat the crap out of him in the first round. And you know what? The main mistake that OSP made there was just overexerting himself. He put everything into that first round. Krylov was able to come out and easily get the choke. It was easy work because OSP was done. But then, Blachowicz, loss. Glover Teixeira, loss. Johnny Walker, he wins, and he wins in the most incredibly boring way possible. He lies on him for the entire fight. I mean, it's just not what I want to see, especially when you're fighting a guy like Magomed Ankalaev, who has been blitzing through all of his opponents. This is a great matchup, don't get me wrong. Sounds like I'm hating on Krylov here. I am not. Krylov is a dangerous matchup for Magomed without a shadow of a doubt. And although, complete dominance has been the recent motto for the Russian, this Ukrainian should not be overlooked. Krylov is trained everywhere. Karate was the Kickstarter when he was a kid. Black belt master of sports, check. Hand-to-hand combat master of sports, check. Submission fighting master of sports, check. His complete martial arts game is one of the most versatile. 15 submissions, 11 knockouts, says it all, really. Magomed has less experience during his professional martial arts career than Krylov does, but that deep-rooted martial arts experience is quite similar. He's also a master of sports internationally in martial arts and combat sambo. They're both former champions in their respective regional promotions, and they have both got the skills to do the same in this company. But the striking of Magomedov is so sharp, precise, and powerful. When you look at his previous 2 fights, poor Cutelaba should have just accepted the early stoppage or whatever and forgot the rematch, because Ankalaev now has 2 KOs on his record against him. The second one was so brutal. When Cutelaba got dropped to the ground, he put his guard up, and Magomed's ground and pound was so hard it just punched his guard out of the way, and he took his soul right there, right then. Krylov hasn't been as active. But he's still got a similar viciousness to him. That's not going to leave. He is a fighter at heart. Now, he's 2-2 in his last 4, but, he has faced the top of the top. And it seems that Krylov, his wrestling defense is a real weak spot of his, because I've noticed, even through wins and losses, he is easily taken down. I spoke about the OSP fight. OSP gassed himself and he lost via choke. Then we got the Glover Teixeira fight. Teixeira pressured the hell out of him, and that's what cost him the decision. His gas tank. I'm not favouring the gas tank of Krylov. He seemed to be panting a lot after round 1 against the Glover Teixeira. And yeah, great win versus Johnny Walker for the record. But performance-wise, not so much. He held Walker to the ground, and that was just complete lackluster in ability to even fight on the ground. He wasn't throwing any strikes. There wasn't much there. So for that reason, I just think that this is all Magomed because, you know, he hasn't, other than the Paul Craig fight, I haven't seen many bad days from Magomed, and those last 2 fights were real impressive. Taking out guys like Klidson Abreu, Dolce Lugambala, Marcin Pratnio is also impressive. None of them guys are bummy fighters. The Paul Craig loss is a bit dodgy. You know, he gave up the sub, the end of round 3. He wasn't completely dominant in the fight. I will say this. Paul Craig held his own, but Paul Craig can strike as well as submit. He can do it. So we'll give that a slip. That was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It's all Magomed. It's Magomed. I think he's going to get this done inside the distance too. I think he's going to add another one to that knockout record. He's got great takedown defense, but he doesn't like to get messy on the floor. So I do believe if Krylov is going to win this one, it's going to be an ugly one like he did against Johnny Walker. I just don't think he can hold Magomed there. Magomed's going to piece him up, drop them combos, and knock him out in round 2 or 3.
All right. Well, there we go. I was going to actually look by round for Magomed and Ankalaev. So Ankalaev in round 2 is plus 400, whereas in round 3 is plus 800. So there's value right there. So if you guys do want to get on this fight, again, via BetOnline, Ankalaev is minus 342 and Krylov is plus 282. Let's move on to the main event. And Matt, I'm sure you're so happy again this week because we have another big boy fight. We have heavyweight Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Ciryl Gane. And this is another main event, just like last weekend, where I am drawn between the two because you got Biggie Boy and then Bon Gamin. So their odds via BetOnline, Rozenstruik is plus 220 and Gane is plus 260. Dave, I am going to continue with you for your breakdown and pick for the main event.
I mean, I sound like an old record, but this is tough. This is real tough from a personal standpoint as well as a professional one. I cannot predict this. I'm the fan inside me. I really like Rozenstruik. I've liked him since day one. I've been flying the flag for him, and same goes for Ciryl Gane. Watching Gane inside an octagon with just 3 years experience going 7-0 is quite a spectacle. Now, if you know Muay Thai, you'll know that, yeah, he does have a Muay Thai background, and that's why he found it easy to transition into MMA and dominate so much. He's a former World Thai champion. Trained at the highest level for the past more than 10 years, I think. And he's just a well-versed technical fighter inside that cage. Perfect, undefeated in Muay Thai championships, and you know what? He's even got a bit of ground game in there too, because his submission wins are racking up, and that's just strictly from the jiu-jitsu trainers inside his gym. Rozenstruik, much like Gane, he is he's not just any old newcomer to the UFC. They are making impact quick. The heavyweight division is moving at such a fast rate. Matt must be loving it because it's like we're getting them every week now, and there's new contenders coming from left, right, and center. Rozenstruik is also another guy who is no stranger to a striking matchup. He's got a mixture of kickboxing and Muay Thai, and when he puts that together, he's one of the best counter strikers in the division right now. Say what you will. The problem here is I think Gane's technical ability, and because we haven't seen him get knocked out, you just have to side with him by default. Just by default. If you've studied both of these fighters, you just have to side with Gane slightly, because we've seen more from Rozenstruik in his loss to Overeem and his knockout loss to Ngannou. The fight-ending knockout power of Rozenstruik is being a persistent threat himself. He isn't a guy that gets a technical knockout. He has got that one punch, see you later, you're gone. His ability to counter strike whilst moving backwards is going to be the biggest threat to Gane. If Gane's going to pressure him, he's going to be pressuring into some of the most dangerous striking, as I said, in that heavyweight division. Overeem was able to outscore Rozenstruik through the first 24 or something minutes. And then during the fifth and final round, he landed that counter hook. The same counter hook he attempts to lure his opponents in every time he fights. It worked, and it could work again if Gane isn't on his game. Gane enjoys staying on the outside. He's got high-level technical Muay Thai striking. He's always, well, more often than not, he's going to hold that reach advantage. And now I see he uses his leg kicks, inside leg kicks, to gauge the range. He's got multiple different combinations, and one of the most best things about Gane is his switching stance and constant movement whilst he's standing. And he alternates the speed of his low and high kicks. Now, this shows us how elite that striking really is. Front kicks, high kicks, calf kicks, teep kicks, just annoyingly thrown, become very hard to read with this method of changing speed. It's something to behold. It's also worth mentioning, highlighting more, his ability to switch stance and bounce around like it's some bantamweight. It's the evolution of the heavyweight division is odd right now, but it's rising at such a fast rate, it's hard to keep up. That slow, plodding power puncher is really going to struggle in 2021. Even guys like Derrick Lewis knew this, and for the past couple of years now, have really been focusing on the other things other than, your punches, your offenses and stuff like that. And as I said, his ground game is also worth a mention. 3 of his 6 career stoppages, they're all done by submission. So that's something that Gane also has in his back pocket. He has more paths to victory to Rozenstruik than me. But much like last week in Derrick Lewis, Rozenstruik has got that power, and he's got that precise technical striking that could catch Gane. It really could. I think all the advantages should go to Gane realistically across 5 rounds. But you just take a look at that Overeem fight and, heavyweights in general. You can never really put 100% into them, especially in this day and age where the newcomers are defeating all the legends. It's quite a spectacle, because then you drop down to the light heavyweight division and we flip it. The legends are defeating all the newcomers. So it's a crazy time to be a fan of the heavier weight classes, and a very entertaining one too. But when it comes to betting this fight, do you think I'm going to pick a side? Don't be silly. The over. I don't make the same mistake twice, okay? Over. I was seeing over 1.5.
Yeah.
At some pretty good prices. There's some good prices out there, and I just think Rozenstruik waiting for the counter, which he will do, and Gane knowing that if he over pressures, he's going to get caught because Rozenstruik is so good at striking, moving backwards. I'm just going to go with the over and hope that no one gets caught. I'm going to be honest. There's no deep technical reason for why I'm taking the over. It's all down to me just believing that these two are tough enough to last 7 minutes. I think that's what it's going to be. We'll see this surpass 7 minutes, and then from there on out, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. 25 minutes, Gane Rozenstruik. I'm all for this fight, and I cannot wait.
I love that you brought up the comparison with Derrick Lewis, because I was literally thinking, I'm like, this is very familiar to last week, where you have one fighter that's a very powerful striker and then another fighter that's just a well-rounded fighter. So I feel like there's a lot of value on Rozenstruik. I love Gane, but it's so hard to bet against Rozenstruik. So right now, I might take Rozenstruik. Why not? But for now, I'm staying away. If you guys want to know what I choose, just check out my articles. Yeah. But
to bet Gane straight up too, guys. If you're betting Gane straight up, it's bad. If you're a long-term bettor, it's just bad ethics. And do you know what? I should have been thinking about that last week more. In reality, that across the 25 minutes in the smaller cage, which I do neglect a lot, and I must thank Matt for highlighting this, because I always forget. And we'll always get to these breakdowns, and he mentions the smaller cage, and I go, God damn it. It was the Alex Caceres fight that got me, because when you watch Alex Caceres fight, he does move around a lot, and he likes his space. And when you've been fighting in a big cage for 10 years, and then you come up against a guy in that smaller, things like that do matter. And for that reason, that's why you just got to be a bit hesitant in these unprecedented times of, coronavirus and all this stuff. I'm sure we'll be back to a more normalish style of event holding, and I'll be able to go to an event in England by next year or something. But for now, in these smaller cages, it is a bit risky, especially with guys that weigh 250 pounds.
Yeah, exactly. Well, how about you, Matt? I've been waiting to hear what you have to say for this main event fight: Rozenstruik or Gane?
So much like Akon, this pick by me is locked up, and I won't let it out. For me, it comes down to Gane is 7-0, but in his career, he has had 3 wins by knockout, 3 wins by decision, submission, and then 1 by decision. And you look at that 1 decision fight and who that opponent was, and it was Tanner Boser. No shade on Tanner Boser. Good fighter, quality fighter, but then you look at Jairzinho Rozenstruik, and you see he's knocked out Alan Crowder in 9 seconds. He walked off against Overeem. His only loss was to Francis freaking Ngannou. And both of these guys, weirdly enough, in their last fight, knocked out JDS or stopped JDS in the second round. So there's the weird parallel lives thing here. But I like Ciryl Gane. He's got a deeper skill set. But when you look at the quality of opponent, you look at the smaller cage, you look at the ability that Rozenstruik has to pressure, it's hard to not go against him. Like, I'll take the over. I will take the over, even though Rozenstruik has, had 7 of his 11 wins end in the first round. 7 of his 11 wins. All of them, by the way, all 7 of them by knockout. No submissions. This man does not like the ground. He does not like laying any. I think he sleeps standing up. That's how much I think Rozenstruik hates to be on his back. But I can't fade Rozenstruik here. I can't bet against him. If I were, this is also a huge stay away fight for me. Unless I'm taking, I want to take the under on this fight because all the stats lean towards it. But then after the fight last week, everything's up in the air. It is bananas. And I'm gonna make my pick. I'm going with Rozenstruik. I think he gets the knockout. I think he gets a stoppage. And this fight goes a little longer than I expect. I think this doesn't go to championship rounds, but I can see this ending late round 2, early round 3.
Right.
And then that sets up Rozenstruik. Sorry, that sets up Rozenstruik and Lewis, huh? How about that?
Oh, don't tease me. Don't tease me. Yeah. Don't tempt me.
Well, if you guys do want to get on this fight again via BetOnline, Rozenstruik is plus 220 and Gane is minus 260. There we go. Now, that's all we have for the main card breakdown. Now, before we go, I do want to dabble into the prelims or lock on the card. And then after that, I do want to answer any of the questions that you guys might have. So if you have any questions or comments, let me know down in the chat box below, and I will answer it the best I can. So, Dave, I will start with you. Is there a prelim that you're looking out for or a lock on the card?
Ooh, a lock on the card, eh? Do you know what? After last week, who did I give as my lock? Did I give Tom Aspinall as my lock last week?
I think you did.
I think I did, didn't I? But I was very heavy on Charles Rosa too. And I just want to bring that up. Charles Rosa is like, imagine being a fireman, going to put a fire out and just not bringing the hose with you. Because that's exactly what Charles Rosa did last week. It's like he repeated his performance in his prior loss to just do the exact same thing, lie there and lose. Anyway, now I've moaned about that. I lock on this card now. I don't really feel like there is a real... In fact, Angie Hill. There we go. There's my lock of the card, Angie Hill. Prelim fights that I actually like all of them. And one of them was just announced today. Ramazan Kuramagomedov, who fought on Dana White Contender Series a couple of years ago, is stepping on short notice to face Cowboy Oliveira. Okay. And is young... And it's very risky to put your money behind these debuting fighters. But from the tape that I've done thus far today on Kuramagomedov, He looks great, and he's doing his fight camp with Ricardo Almeida, BJJ, under Mark Henry. He's working with Frankie Edgar, Said Nurmagomedov. On the feet is a southpaw, very busy. That might put Oliveira off, but as soon as he can get a hook in and take this fight to the ground, I think Oliveira is going to get dominated. I know Oliveira's got submissions off his back. I know he's got knockout power. But the debut, and he's just one of them dudes, and guess where he comes from? The exact same area that Khabib comes from. He is a monster. We see this surge of talent from Dagestan, and I am continuing with these guys. I love them all. Zabit, Ali Bagnateov, Islam Makhachev, Askarov, Tukagov as well. I love them all. I think they're great fighters. There's something in the water over there that makes them incredible at wrestling. The top control of Nurmagomedov here, I believe, will win the fight for him. And if he does come out here and defeat a guy like Oliveira, you best believe that you will not see a price tag of minus 140 on him again. So as you see with a lot of these Russians, it's minus 300 to 500 majority of the time because they're just so dominant in one area. So I'm going to take my chance and see if I can make some money on Nurmagomedov this weekend. I might be butchering his name because I only started researching him this morning, to be honest.
No, I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. But yeah, Bet Online, Ramazan is minus 150 and Oliveira is plus 130. So there we go. Well, how about you, Matt? Do you have a prelim fight that we all should look out for or a lock on the card?
Well, I was going to it's kind of straight chalk across the board. Angie Hill and Rozenstruik are my locks, my icons of the week. And that Oliveira, anytime Cowboy Oliveira is fighting, I'm interested. It's always going to be a fun fight. He's not always going to get the win. He lost his last fight, but I like that, and I really do like the majority of this card. This full card is an interesting card, and you're getting your fake money's worth if you have ESPN Plus. I think that this is going to be a good card. I think that Hernandez and Moises is also a very good fight.
Yes. I was just looking at that.
The top prelim. That's the prelim main event. But I really do think that the top 7 fights for this card are very strong.
Oh, yes, I definitely agree with you. Now, let's make our way over to the chat real quick. I don't think I saw a lot of questions, but we have, the DFS Bachelor, Kyle. Say hi to Kyle, everyone. Then we have BC Dave. Silva going to ground quick. De La Rosa gets subbed by armbar in the second. Do you guys agree with that one or no? For De La Rosa getting subbed.
Do you know Silva is good at that armbar, right?
Yeah.
But the armbar is now one of the most amateur ways to lose a fight. So losing by armbar is very embarrassing. Do I think Silva can get it on De La Rosa? No, I actually don't think she can get the armbar, just because Montana spent so much time on the ground with wrestling and jiu-jitsu. I'm not sure she can. If you go back to the Silva versus Gillian Robertson, you will see that she can be controlled on the ground. She's not like a brute force to be reckoned with. Mm-hmm. So although it's possible, I do think she can get a sub. To be so precise and go for the armbar, I don't know about that one. If there was a prop for that, I'm sure you get some decent odds, but I guess that don't matter because you can just take Silva by decision and get some great odds on that.
Yeah, exactly. Let's move on. Mama Rose says, hi, babe. Hi, Mama. My #1 fan. Let's keep going. John Joseph Anna Thanem says, Magomed any day, all day. Yes. I agree. And he wants a hi from you, Dave, because he's a huge fan. So that's great.
Hide? You ain't got to hide from it. You need to come on Twitter, shoot me a DM, at me. Do you know what I mean? Get a retweet and get a like and get talking to me. That's all I want. It's all about community and communication so we can all win money together.
He also asked Lee, who would you have your money on if David and Matt were to fight? Well, I need to see some highlight reels before I'm throwing money on Dave or Matt. Come on.
Oof. My highlight reel is just me getting slapped around.
No.
I have not been in a street fight in over 15 years. And that was an embarrassment where a baseball player slapped me around because he was a douchebag.
Oh my God. I'll fight him. Oh, the give us.
I'm not gonna pass.
I've never turned down a fight. I'm sorry. I know. Okay, so message retracted. Tipsters Tom, I actually saw your message, and he offered me money if I were to fight any other sports reporter, and if I would accept it. And the only way for me to collect the money is if I won. Like I just said, I have never turned down a fight, and no one knows this about me except for Dave. But yes, I do have I have a second-degree black belt, and yes, I have background in fighting. So try me, throw anyone my way, and I won't disappoint. Anyway, enough of me ranting. I'm not saying that. Aspinall pick was sharp, great. Cowboy dead after 1 round to love, round 2 props. That's Kyle. Come on, guys, we have no questions. When Francis knocks out Stipe, who in the world would be able to beat him? That is a good
Derrick
question.
Lewis.
Derrick Lewis. John Jones. John Jones. The length alone.
Anybody that has high level wrestling, really, and good grappling. Well, I don't. There's a few guys, man. Ngannou has got that power. He's a bit like Derrick Lewis. Like, you know, is he going to connect or not? And that's what it is.
So Derrick Lewis actually called out Stipe. Do you think we'll see that fight anytime soon? That's a good question.
That's third in line. Like, we got to get through Stipe and Ngannou, then Jones and Ngannou, and then Stipe and Lewis to see who fights the winner of that fight.
All right. Well, that's all we have. Next time, guys, prepare your questions, and I will remind you to throw me your questions. That way we can answer it for you. But that is all we have for our breakdown for this upcoming weekend's event. Heavyweight, Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Ciryl Gane. If you guys aren't following the guys on Twitter, definitely give them a follow. You can follow Dave at @dmanion_ and Matt at mryan consulting. And then while you're at it, like always, give SBR a follow at SBR Sports Picks. And for more breakdowns and picks from all of SBR's UFC experts, including yours truly and David Manyun, just go to sbrpicks.com/UFC. I wish you all the best of luck, and I will see you next week for an amazing breakdown for UFC 259. Best of luck.